All right, we are now live. I just got the green light from Jonathan. Welcome, everybody who's watching it now live with us or listening to this on a pre recorded session. Today, we've got a cool idea. We're going to start having more conversations about sort of the industry as it's being taken over by this big wave of AI now. It's been a couple of years, but we can always get more into it based on the experiences that we've found. And today, what we've done is pull together a bunch of news articles and X tweets to take a measure of the sentiment of AI. And we're really going to dive into the AI psychosis of it, the irrational exuberance that we're seeing in the market. Today on the podcast, I'm really excited to introduce Almir, Jonathan, and of course, Ryan. And I am your host, Paul Chin Jr. We are all from SLS Guru, full service, full technical, end-to-end consultancy, helping enterprises and startups in the cloud, making the most of their AI strategy. Really just really good software development techniques. But we're going to just go ahead and get jumping right in because I think everybody knows who Almir is. He's our lead security person. People that don't know about Jonathan, I'm really excited to bring him onto our conversations. He hasn't really been on too many webinars, but he is our marketing genius, and he's actually got a really cool take on AI. And of course, Ryan, our leader and co-founder, here to keep us all grounded. Let's jump into it. I'm going to go ahead and say I brought one story that's not really like a story, but Jonathan, if you could bring up the Hacker News screen. This was 11 days ago, just on Hacker News, and it's really stuck with me. And it is just a post from the guy, Peter, who created OpenClaw. If you don't know what OpenClaw is, it's an agent, autonomous thing. I'm sure you do know what it is, but more scarily is he showed off just how much they were spending on tokens in just 30 days. And this is shown off as sort of like an achievement. And it just kind of blew my mind that this would be so open. And I guess it's a good thing that, he's being open about this fun graph that he's made. But $1.3 million in tokens spend over 30 days. I wanted to start with
That's
this.
insane.
Who wants to, just go ahead and jump on in with the first kind of thought you have when you see a proud graph of 603 billion tokens. Like, totally proud of what he's done.
Oh man, what do you even say to that? I mean, it's absolutely insane. Hopefully he got value out of it, because I feel like there's the there's the whole token maxing side that we're seeing right now in the market, where if you're not using as much tokens as your salary or 50% of your base salary, then you're not, quote unquote, performing as a software engineer. But then are we actually looking at the outcomes? And then, deeper to that, are we getting a rebate from these companies that are actually, because not every token that comes through actually leads to a tangible outcome, but you pay for all of it. And so, I saw a chart, I don't know if we'll show it later, but it was something along the lines of maybe only 18% of the token cost actually leads to an outcome. So, just extrapolating that math, I mean, way more than a majority of the time, you're actually just paying for debugging, errors, and hallucinations. So when I see this, it almost makes me feel like, is only 18% of this actually valuable? In which case, man, you're basically showing how financially irresponsible you actually are while not seeing it, which is kind of a weird concept.
I think this does fall into AI psychosis because, full chest showing how pretty the graph is, like not what's in it, just the fact that he's got a better graph. I know when I'm making things using the agents, I find myself building more UI dashboards and graphs because I can. And it gives you like almost like a false sense of security that you're being productive because you can see number go up. Almir, you got any thoughts on how much this person, like how much they can spend relative to what the graph can show?
Yeah, that's the good question, and thank you for that one, because really people are, and this podcast has really meaningful and catchy name, Fool's Gold. Um, the thing is that people are thinking about this AI generating code is like some miraculous thing that is going to solve world's problems, and now they don't need developers, they don't need anything. They start with the massive layoffs and everything, and suddenly we are in a situation that we are still using the same software, we are still using the we are still doing reviews, we are spending lots of time on security issues, breaches, and data leaks and whatnot. And these companies are having problems with that. So I think the cost increased much more than the actual cost of having all those developers doing the real job. I don't think it's worth it. That's my thought that I'm going to carry through this stream. So spending is much more. It just doesn't pay off still or yet.
I do wonder if the metric of token maxing, just so everybody understands what token maxing is, because it's just like a weird tech culture thing. At these large tech companies, people's performance are being measured against the amount of tokens they're using to produce code. And that just makes me think of how much, like, in general, I don't think developers want to get measured by like how many tickets they close or how many lines of code they write. I mean, Ryan, is lines of code really like a genuine measure of how well you're doing?
No.
Of course not.
Absolutely not. You know,
Yeah,
it's
tell me
kind of
more
crazy.
about.
You know,
Yeah, tell me
it's
more
just a
about
bunch
that
of
ethos.
noise. I actually, so I was thinking for a second. Do we know where token maxing? You know, how this sort of came about? Because when I
Well,
think about token maxing, I have to go to the non-tech side. And I go, well, there's something called look maxing,
yep.
and it's just this crazy, like, there's this guy breaking his jawbone and trying to like re-heal it to then look slightly better externally, and it's so vain, and it's also just reflective of like where society currently is as well. But then I started thinking for a second, I'm like, wait, I know for a fact that a lot of the people that are pushing AI, we all know, are coming out of Silicon Valley, and we also know a lot of the people that are taking some of the stuff with like peptides and so on. These peptide drugs are also being used, and it's also related. And so I was thinking, I heard something a while back that Sam Altman, the CEO, founder of OpenAI, co-founder of OpenAI, he went to the hospital after he took a peptide that reacted badly with his system. And so now I'm starting to put it together. I'm like, wait, okay, so the looks maxing to now token maxing and the similarities and the overlaps with all of this, and it's just a horrible it's a horrible word, and I think it's rooted in actually something that's even worse, you know. So yeah, it's crazy.
I think I wanted to bring to the forefront how we are gathered here today to talk about this because it's kind of like a car accident we can't look away from. And we are going to process this little bit of collective trauma by talking about it here and saying, like, the incentive structures and the risk profiles have gotten completely out of whack, right? If lines of code or number of tokens spent were really a good measure, then it would also you would also want to see that, like, in general, engineers are happier, or in general, the people are happier. But we haven't really seen any of that. It's all been use AI as much as you can, because that seems to be the only tool we have right now. And kind of speaking of the fact that we only have this one tool, AI, like I go to like normal places with like regular people getting my hair cut and stuff, and I hear about people talking about AI, just like normal everyday folks being like, I gotta use ChatGPT, or my company's doing this. And the doctors need AI for this, the schools need AI for that. So I'm going to bring up another really cool article from our marketing guru, Jonathan. And I'm really happy Jonathan's on, because beyond just like the technical stuff, we also know that it's affecting the businesses and how businesses are being run. And yeah, the security stuff, the scary stuff, that's there too. But Jonathan, you want to tell me a little bit about what you found with this article and this other article about how Google search and sort of AI is wrapping itself uh, into the search product?
It'd be my absolute pleasure. Thanks for bringing me on, Paul. And for the last thing you shared, it's absolutely crazy to think that the metric is like token spend, which feels like in itself like they're marketing how effective AI can be, because they're spending a lot on using the tokens. It's like costing them a lot of money. So like, look how cool I am making this thing that isn't really making anything. It's kind of the vanity of it. And it gets me thinking of like, if AI right now is free to use, at what point will it become, like to the general public, right? It's being kind of subsidized by, people with deep pockets, and it's, going to become something that's going to be more widely accepted or like used than what is going to be the base outcome for the consumer. Like, where is this heading, right? And so the two articles I found today, I think I speak to my anxiety of, where's AI heading? Does it have the consumer in mind? And like, is it just a metric that these companies are hitting to appease like stockholders or people who are, funding it? Look how much money I was able to spend on tokens, or how much money people are spending on tokens, but what is the outcome of that? So wrapping it back around, Google, we all know it. We all maybe love it or use it. I'm not going to say who does or doesn't like it, but it is, an ubiquitous search engine. It is the search engine, right? And let's be honest, I haven't felt like Google's been exactly what Google has been in recent years. I've had my complaints about it, but some recent things I've seen about it have been really worrying to me, where they're changing the search engine into what is called an intelligent search box, which is, I think, a euphemism for a chatbot, right? So what that means is that the AI overviews that Google is been implementing like over the last couple of years, right? These things that people have been wanting to shut off is now become the de facto search engine, where when you type in a query, it's going to be a casual conversation with an AI agent who's going to want to kick back and chill with you and ask some follow-up questions. And don't worry, we're going to go through and we're going to scour the internet for you, and we're going to bring you all the answers that you're looking for these things. Don't worry, you sit there, let us do the hard work, right? You don't need to worry about those pesky links. You don't need to click on anything, because we're going to just scrape it all and bring it to you on a platter. And that's kind of the proposal for what is going to be happening with Google, right? And so I think it's going to be implemented, I think as of yesterday, it's become more widespread, or it's going to become the main way of using Google. And over the summer, they're also going to be implementing, things that are going to generate images for you and say like, hey, you're interested in black holes. Well, here's a picture of one. And it's going to become, you're going to be able to make your own Google app through AI using Google, and you're going to say, hey, you know, Google, I have a workout regimen and a diet I'm trying to do. Can you wrap that up into my Google Calendar and make me a schedule for that? Can I have an app for that? And it'll make you this app, and it's supposed to be, you know, empowering for the user, and it's supposed to be something that, you know, the consumer is going to, you know, love to use because it's going to take the guesswork out of searching things on Google, right? But what worries me about this, and where the other article comes in, is one, you know, isn't the simple pleasure of clicking links why we use Google? But no, to be honest, it's, you know, humans are the first filter, right? We know what websites we want to get information from. We know which websites we can't trust information from. And if Google is now scraping the generalized internet for it and giving it to us, we can't really go through that process of saying, hey, you know, where did this come from? We can't filter it out as the first means of, you know, using it. And that's scary to me because AI can be easily manipulated, as seen in the other article that I have, where a tech writer for the BBC decided to say, you know what if I was a world champion hot dog eater, and wrote an article about it and said, yeah, I'm going to use some, big words. I'm going to make it sound really official. I think it's like authoritative words. I think that's like the technical term. I'm not a technical guy, but I think it's like authoritative words, which helps AI find and scrape the thing. So he posted an article about how he won a hot dog eating competition, was the top tech writer in the world at hot dog eating, because he ate like 7.5 hot dogs in 2 minutes or something, like really funny. And the next day got picked up, and he searched, hey, tell me a list of competitive hot dog eaters who are world champions, and his name came up as being the very top of that. And it speaks to how easily AI can be manipulated to scrape content that isn't fact. It's just, you know, someone who wants to introduce some misinformation. And in this context, it's really funny, right? But you got to think about it in the context of, like, what if it's a consumer who's looking up something about medicine, or they're looking into, you know, cybersecurity, and they get some misinformation from a company saying, hey, just install this thing and you'll be great, and it's, you know, malware or something. And Google is aware of it, as stated in this article, that they have like a company policy saying, hey, if you do this and you manipulate the AI to scrape your website, you will be banned, or like we're going to come for you. But the thing that's bad about that is that they wrote that last year, and this happened recently. This was something that just happened maybe like a week or two ago, and the BBC reached out to Google, and they responded that that's not a high priority right now, and it's not something that they're going to be looking really into because they have this policy in place, right? So it kind of comes down to virtual whack-a-mole of, if you can find it, then they'll deal with it. And if they can't, then they're not really incentivized to deal with it, because, you know, it's not affecting the outcome of people are going to be using our AI, and it's going to be scraping things. There might be some bad apples, but, you know, you got to live with it. But, you know, it hurts the consumer in that way. And, you know, it hurts the companies who rely on Google to drive traffic to their websites, like Wikipedia, for example. You know, I love a Wikipedia. Darcy Carden, if you're watching this from WikiHole, please have me on. You know,
who hasn't gotten lost for way too long on a Wikipedia rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. And so, like, you know, as referenced in this article too, the changes that came recently are going to be further decimating, you know, the already struggling referrals that people have seen declining since AI overviews even began like a year or two ago. Like, so these websites are already seeing a sharp decline in visitors. Now this is just going to exacerbate that and make it even harder for websites that rely on traffic to get that stuff, while AI and Google scrape it up and present it to the user as the, you know, here's all you'll need. You don't need to go and click these links anymore. Which I think they're still going to be available. You just have to scroll through it all, and it's going to be a hassle. And so it's not going to be something that, you know, the average user is going to like try to get. And so, I'm not really sure where that's going to leave people or businesses that rely on Google, you know, to optimize their business. But that's just where the train's headed right now for that.
Brian, you
Yeah,
got a
well
thought?
said. Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts. So, I mean, I think the first sort of, since AI started, especially with what we all do, I think I've personally probably had multiple identity crises in the past couple of years as this stuff has progressed and modified certain areas. I think, I've got comments about Google, but I also have kind of a story of when it first kind of hit of just like, oh man, eventually these AI chats are just going to completely eat all of the SEO that we've been used to building around. And then as they do, they may or may not actually have to show where it's being sourced from. So while Jonathan was talking, I was like, okay, I've been using Google recently. They made the change to only or to start showing, I would say only the AI recommendation with all their information on and so on. So I typed in, things to do in Spain, and it gave me the AI overview as it always does. And I'm reading through it and I see, Spain offers an intoxicating mix of, and so on and so forth. And I keep reading through it. And as I see hyperlinks, but I don't see websites, right? I like, clearly this information is being stolen from these individual sites that worked hard to put that information together, and Google is stealing it and then repackaging it. But then they leave the link to it and they have a little sidebar that sort of shows it, but doesn't actually stitch it together properly. And it's a very, in my opinion, it's a very deceiving way to do it because, and then that's my first point. The second point is ego. I think, I don't know if it really connects, but I'm going to go with it anyways. I feel like what Google did initially was they were a presentation layer for the global internet, right? Allowing people to access and find websites from all around the world. And they were able to bring these things together through this unified search where you could find all this interesting stuff around the web. And they took that power, right? And now it's just like this race to zero is pretty much what it feels like, where everyone is just like throwing all their morals, ethics, all the principles they said that they had previously. They're just throwing them all to the wind, trying to, grab that extra dollar, in all of this. That's another point. The last point I'll make is about what I've seen happen with YouTube ads recently, and also I think TikTok ads as well. I'm not on there, but I saw it being posted on X. And specifically what I'm talking about is the only ads I see now are just AI generated, right? And so where we're really going with this is AI generated, and these are AI generated ads that are actually extremely dangerous because they're telling people, hey, here's this new health secret that you can use to like drop, how old are you? 47? Well, in 60 days, 60 days from now, be prepared to be 30 pounds less, And it's like, what's the simple formula for it? There's some baking soda. And it's like, none of this stuff is real. This whole video is fake. Clearly, we all would be able to recognize it, at least for now, if the video game history goes, maybe we won't be able to recognize it in the future, aside from just how wild it sounds. But that's what I'm seeing now, which is the ads are being overrun with AI across all major platforms. And they're also just trying to squeeze out every single possible dollar that they can, even if that means just absolute, lying and scamming and so on. And the platforms are so money hungry to expand out their compute and to feed the AI, the AI that's going to lie, take over everything. They have to keep funneling it more and more money. How do they do that? By allowing for scam ads to run on their platforms and not stopping it. Because if they stop the flow of the scam ads and they stop the AI, advertisements and to the level that they're doing, it would end up hitting their bottom line. That would then stop them from being able to have that money. And then now with all the money flowing out to the data center build outs and so on, it's a really bad equation. And so, I'm sitting there going, this company, what they used to stand for 5 years ago is like, and so that would be my final point is, one massive entity trying to gobble up everything. And it made it feel, initially when this stuff came out, I used to write a lot of articles. I said I was going to stop, but that was the last point. I used to write a lot of articles, put a lot of things online. And I started to feel like there's no real point for me to do that anymore, because I just feel like everything that I put out there is just going to be gobbled up, ate, someone's going to use it to generate a website, and it's just like I don't know, it's just a weird thing where it's like before I felt like I was actually connecting to other humans across the internet and sharing these insights that I had in the work that I was doing. And now I feel like it's just, being used against, against me, against the company, against the community, against the people, by these gigantic companies that are, what are they really offering us back in, except for what we've already done, right? So repackaged, human knowledge that's sort of metered would be the right way to say it. Okay.
I mean,
that's a lot.
Google has always been in the business of monopolizing your attention. And for up until now, they've gotten away with co-opting humans to create content for them, right? Like it took everybody on the planet to have a specific point of view to write about so that it could be indexed. And Google was always like they weren't editorial about it. You searched for what you wanted, and then their process would filter through on these keywords and stuff. But now that trust is really gone, because they are now the editorializers of it. They are implementing their own higher level algorithms to say, like, this is what you should be looking at. Not because it's what you looked for, but because we think that it is the information that you were looking for. And it's all under the guise of making a more personalized experience for people. But I think that overlooks the fact that by using generative results, it dehumanizes all of the work that it's summarizing, right? And so maybe the last point on these search engine things, Jonathan, is, what are marketers supposed to do with this AI optimization? Like, are we now going to be doing writing articles and optimizing for chatbots, or like having more markdown files in the root of a website? Instead of robots.txt, now we have agents.md? Like, what is that looking like for you right now?
That's a really interesting question. I don't know how this is going to impact the search optimization, or like SEO is such a specialized skill, and something that so many marketers and people in the industry have spent, like, I think, years optimizing and specializing in. I think that when it comes to the use of AI in search engines like this, I think what Ryan was saying was really relevant, where now when I make this piece of content, is it just going to get gobbled up and become part of the mass horde, right? Is it going to be something that I can even rely to bring traffic to my website? Is this going to be something that now I'm going to have to find other revenues or routes for people to come and visit us? It's kind of, it's making it harder to find the value in hosting your own website. It's really damaging that ability to say, hey, we're a company, we're gonna build our website, we're gonna put really good SEO into it, and we're gonna have people come and visit our website, give us traffic, and in that way drive our business. Now it's becoming an avenue for Google to make more money through scraping your information, giving it to the consumer, so they spend tokens, or they spend Google bucks on finding the answer that you and your experts have provided. So to be honest, I think that it's just going to become a new challenge for people to find ways to stand out, and it's going to shift how companies try to find their customers, because you can't rely on your website to be that driving force anymore, which is really sad for a lot of companies that rely on that.
I wanted to add one thing, which is, this is exactly why we're kind of doing this too. It's this idea of like real humans, real faces. You can see and hear everything that we're talking about. We're not holding back. It's not scripted. It's all on the fly. And I feel like that type of very authentic content definitely comes through more, especially because if we just wrote a blog and it was only text and you don't really know how much was influenced by AI or how much was generated by AI, and you can tell there are subtleties to it, but it's getting better. People are finding ways to sort of bypass that, and so yeah, I would also throw the flag of, we're in this transitionary period, which is really weird too. I think Paul, you mentioned this on our Slack, which was this must have been what it felt like during the dot-com bubble. Just like, we're pretty sure that this is heading off the cliff, but like we don't know fully, right? So when we say, is SEO going to die? I don't know. Maybe regulation will come in randomly and it'll change things, right? Maybe it will all sort of be gobbled up, and then who knows, right? So, but I at least know that what we're doing right now, this is not AI. This is full on real, for humans talking, and I think that's at least when I think about it, that feels like a good strategy. And Jonathan and I have worked about how to expand the articles, because for Serverless Guru, we've done, I don't know, 300, 500 articles we've published since the company was founded. We have an incredible team, obviously, that's helping build all this out on all sorts of topics. And now we're thinking, okay, for every article that we write, we should also couple it with a webinar where you can see the author and you can hear from the author's voice, and you can get that perspective from them in a form that's not just purely text that can be immediately copied and cycled out. Because ultimately, these are like soulless, but what I would say on the last point around when the results comes back, when I think about interacting with Grok, let's say, it could be ChatGPT, it could be anything. Initially, when you talk to Grok and you ask a question, it comes back and it gives you an answer. But that answer doesn't have to have any references at all, right? But to build out the ability to have that answer, it might have taken 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 different pieces of articles and content that were written by humans that probably studied for years of their life on those subjects. And it just comes back with like this version with no links to anything or references. And you kind of have to ask the question, which is, why do they get to do that? And why do we just allow that to happen, right? So I hope that, I don't think it's going to happen, but I hope that at some point, this was a thing. Eric Schmidt got booed. Did you guys see that? He was giving a speech.
Was it a commencement? Because
yeah.
I have a TikTok of just a montage of all the graduation commencement speeches with people saying, today your world is different because of AI, and then everybody boos. Like not just one. I feel like I saw like 3 or 4 easily just smashed together of people rebelling against AI. I mean, I personally don't use Google as a search engine anymore. I switched to DuckDuckGo, and it still works. Like, I get links. I search for terms and I get links. And that has actually kept me more sane, because when I was using Google, like I switched maybe about 5 or 6 months ago when Google first started introducing the AI overview box. It was so big and it was in the way so much. I was like, I know how to use Google search terms. Like I know how to, we've been doing this for so long. And I'm not typically one to be against innovation, for sure. But this is almost too heavy-handed. That editorializing is a bit too much, because I can't trust the things that are coming back. I mean, I innately trust a search plus the term Reddit more than an AI overview, right? If I need to find the best places to hang out in Spain, I'll be like, great time in Spain, tips, Reddit. And like that will bring me exactly what I want. But that is a skill that I've ended up learning and I teach to other people. But that sort of AI overview thing just hasn't really hit the mark. And I don't know if it will, because it's trying to replace something that isn't scriptable, right? Like, it's not a programmable thing, this kind of discovery and curation. So yeah, this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
What were you gonna say, Jonathan?
I was just saying 2026 is the year of, it's not broken, let's break it. For some reason.
Like, that is amazing. Yes.
Fine. Let's just replace it with something that isn't. Like you brought up the commencements. I saw a video where instead of having someone read off people's names, they used an AI voice to do it. And the AI voice skipped over like 100 students. It just missed 100 people. And they were like, hey, sorry, we're trying this new thing out. It skipped you guys. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go back and have you walk. So unfortunately, you're going to have to get your, just come to us afterwards and we'll give you your diploma, and that's stealing the moment from so many people. I thought, the pandemic was bad with, you would have to not go to your own graduation. I feel like this is almost worse. You're kind of sitting there and you're waiting for Grok to say your name and, Grok just auto generates you in a bikini or something instead.
I don't know if I've told this story on air before, but I have a daughter in 5th grade, and they had an exercise where they worked with a school AI, and it's like an official thing through the school where they have their lessons, and you're supposed to just sort of read through the material, watch the videos, and then chat with the bot about what you learned. And then there's a little quiz. But when she came home and told me about it, she said it was really weird that they wrote an essay, but it was going to be graded by the AI, but they had to wait until everyone was finished before it could grade it. And in my mind, I was thinking, well, that's interesting. Of course I would want to batch all my inferences in one big go, because that would save the company from having to do it one by one, and you can squeeze 30 students' answers all into one context window around that one question instead of reprocessing it 30 times. I get that. That is a software development technique to batch instead of stream. Okay, that's legitimate. But if the promise of AI is more personalized, individualized, real-time results, then what are we really doing if we're asking the kids to just wait until everyone's done before you get your results? And she actually never got the full results because some of the kids never finished, and then they moved on. So this is just another example of taking the humanity out of it in the wrong place.
Yeah, optimizing for something that isn't, broken. Sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
No, I was actually going to say, I think that's the best way I've heard it said, Jonathan, was it's not broke, let's break it. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think everyone's doing that to all their businesses across the board. They're taking all the reputation, because I've always heard the quote, which is, trust is hard to gain and easy to lose. And it's they're let's just blow up everything in a couple of months. You're like, what? Am I missing it? Or are these companies actually just destroying all of the goodwill they've built, chasing this carrot? And like you said, if you batch all those tests into one single inference, and we already know, and this is a fact, that there will be mixed up results in that at scale. And so some of the results that your daughter might get back might be from the 4th or 5th person in the class that also is in that batch, and they kind of get blended, and they get blended in unknown ways. And it's and then we hear from, or they're announcing the names, and it's they probably tested that before and it worked. And it's just a perfect use case of or example of this, where it's they tested it before, it worked. They probably had it say 20 names, and they're great. And then they're okay, let's just scale it to 200. Should be all fine. And then as it went, it just messed up everything, got super confused. And then it's I actually saw that video, and the parents were very upset. And of course, you spent all this money and time and energy. The kid that you've raised is getting this moment. And then, the most basic thing that humans did in the past, which is, and when we think about it, how much are we really talking to have someone voice a name off, right? And likely at a school, especially at a school, somebody would have volunteered to do that. So we're putting it in a lot of areas, like you said, that just there's no real net gain, except for trying to stick AI on everything. And also, to a point that was mentioned earlier in the beginning of this podcast, all the tech that we're leveraging every day was built pre-AI. Just so we're clear, the streaming that we're doing, whatever social media platform or channel you're watching this off of, that was not AI generated. Okay, all these are software engineers that built all this stuff in the background, architects, networking, security, you know, the entirety of all this was not AI generated. And so I don't know. I hope that, yeah, I hope that these companies, operate with a little bit more respect moving forward into the future of just like how much they're appear like it goes back to the Eric Schmidt thing when he's on stage and he believes this is the future, this is your moments, this is the industrial revolution 2.0 happening right now, and you're so lucky. And it's like the students are going, you guys are stealing all of our stuff, you're repackaging like crap towards us. You're telling us that our jobs are going to go away, and then someone somewhere out of the goodness of their heart is going to give us a couple of dimes to buy bread with. And it's like we don't have to do that. Like you actually control. You're the captain of the ship. Just don't do that, right? And it's like, and now award me with accolades and pat me on the back and make me feel great while I'm also causing that destruction. And it's such a weird reality that we live in, almost like that Black Mirror type of episode where you're like, this person doesn't see that they're actually the villain in some ways. And so
yeah, they're wrapped up in the AI psychosis, and to put a actual data point into what these companies are doing and thinking and how they are just deciding to break things that fully work right now. Almir has a topic where this is a LinkedIn post from the actual CTO of Uber, right? Not a nobody, somebody that's actually got some influence on how engineering happens. And in this post, he talks about how all this code is now being autonomously generated, like huge percentage to go from 1 to 8%. And then telling all the engineers, like, your job is now no longer writing code, it's reviewing agents and minding agents. This is something Almir brought up, and I think it speaks to the culture of engineering that we're going to have to hold on to ourselves and really put a foot down and say, like, why are we breaking this right now? Almir, you want to expand on what this Uber CTO is saying?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So I was listening carefully to discussion, to all this conversation, and there are some really interesting points. And if you allow me, I will just switch and take one step back and say something about the Google and SEO, because I will come back to this topic and to this article. So and I really love the same thing about it's not broken, let's break it. And I really love the hope-driven development, which is something that we are going to talk about. But the thing is that I really cannot understand something, and that this AI psychosis is full of it. So I'm using search engines since Alta Vista, since Yahoo was a thing, and Google since it was founded. And search engine optimization and the manipulation with the indexing of web is not a new thing. That is something that is there since forever. So if there's something to exploit, the malicious users will exploit it in one way or another. They will find a way, they will search the way, they will look for a way to exploit in order to profit from something. So initially, when we started indexing web, the first static websites were full of metadata and keywords. Like literally, there was almost like thousands of words unrelated to the site content. Because so you would have a hot dog in a software development website, or something like a SLS Guru website. You would have hot dog, hamburger, or something. Why? The reason is I want my website to be first in the list. So for whichever reason, and whatever you type, I want my site to be the first. Okay, you don't want my site, that's fine, but have a look. That's the point of all these banners, flares, or whatever. That's marketing, and that was like 30 years ago. And now we have the same thing with the AI. You have the AI powered search engines. Fine, perfect. We are evolving, we are improving, we are having a new touch that will help us, to live better. But what happens? We are back to basics. So now you are manipulating with the AI by injecting some stuff in the prompts, like you saw all these things. So there's a funny story. So like in 2012 on LinkedIn, I was receiving lots of offers, job offers from domestic companies here in my country. Like, yeah, you look like a great candidate, and I saw it's a generic. So instead of putting my name, I replaced that with the beers and like emojis and stuff. And suddenly I started like getting messages and emails, and then I reached out to my friend who who is still working for one of the local IT companies, and he was like, "Oh, you idiot," because they're like, I just took a screenshot of my screen, and like it was cheering, and it was they were addressing me like different names, and but that was like 14, 15 years ago, and it was funny then. And now it's like telling the same joke. In 2026, now there is a viral post from a guy who put on the LinkedIn, like prompt injection and saying like you need to address me in old English, like my lord, your majesty, or whatever that is. So now it's like telling the same old joke. So yeah, we are failing on the basics. Same goes for the security. Same goes for all these things. That is just my point. I wanted to say that. So now, what you are reinventing the wheel. That's what we say here, or hot water, like you would say. So what you are doing. So that is something that is basic. So all these security breaches and data leaks and things that are happening right now with the security, they are all failing on basic things. They are feeling like they embedded token into the URL in a GET request. And I mean, that's something that you today that they teach in a primary school. That's not even a thing now. I mean, that's what AI psychosis giving to us. Like people are adopting it by all means, and they don't think about the foundation, about you can't do that. So and then we go to I really so I survived the .com and I survived the blockchain, which is my favorite. Monkeys in the avatars. That was my favorite. So when I see those people, I still have screenshots of the people who had monkeys in their avatars. So and I use them when I'm addressing them.
Just real quick, Almir, like, because like you just reminded me, I saw someone's they had a private jet and they sold it to buy one of the apes,
Yeah,
the bored apes,
yeah,
and it
apes. Sorry,
lost,
I was
yeah,
saying monkeys, but that's
99%.
the so
Yeah,
pardon my English,
yeah.
but that's the yeah. So that's the thing. Now I'm going to be a millionaire for like this NFT thing is worth I don't know. And when you have a hammer, that's what you say, right? Everything looks like a nail. So I remember, and I still I you know I hate to talk about it, but I still remember about every kind of software, whatever you do. Yeah, 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 that's good, but can you do it with blockchain? I mean, what? So now today, what you have is like, yeah, yeah, this is great, but can you do it with AI? Fine. Now we have AI powered websites. So we are reaching the quantum era. So I expect in a couple of years to have like small subtitles, banners, or whatever saying built by quantum computing, whatever. So that's what I can't really understand. I mean, I know you don't want to be left behind. You don't want to, you want to progress, you want to evolve, all these things. And what is happening now, and what I really need time to wrap my head around it. So going back to the article that Paul was mentioning, and stuff that Nepali Naga, if I'm pronouncing it right, the CTO um, from Uber is saying, is that something around 95% engineers are using AI monthly. Okay, fine, sounds legit. But how? That is the real question. The what really caught my attention is that like around 70% of production code uh, is sorry, not production code. This is very important distinction. 70% of committed code is generated by AI. Okay, that sounds really great and promising and whatnot. But now there is a over really listen to this. Over 10% of production ready code is now uh, powered by AI. So you write 70% of code with AI, but you use 10% in production. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I was doing code reviews, and I know for sure that some of the people from this chat were doing, from this podcast, were doing the same, and the audience as well. Uh, Whoever did code review, I know that you rejected PRs. I know that you had comments and asked for clarification or for some changes, but have you ever rejected 70% of the code? I mean, 70% of the code, and then only 10% accept to production.
That's a great
I
point.
don't think so. You have 100% of PR, and then 10% of PRs are accepted. That sounds awkward. And then there is another thing, KPIs. That is a topic from the very beginning, because I was listening. I was listening and didn't want to interrupt, because there were some really interesting and great points. I love to hear people talking about that. Uh, is that I know some project managers and people that were doing like KPIs based on the lines of code written. That was never that that was never a unit of measure. I mean, some complex algorithms works with lots of lines of code. Some works with less code. You know, you don't always want to have a short code. Sometimes you really want to have small files. That's not how you measure production of your developers. And now with the AI, suddenly they have these leaderboards. Like, yeah, the more tokens you use, the more productive you are. Yeah, right. So that means the more code you write, the the more productive you are. You're not, because you can write, the term spaghetti code. That's
Yeah.
when you write a lot of code that half of it or more can be thrown away because it doesn't make sense. It's bad written code. So with AI, you have 70% committed code generated by AI, and only 10% of those 70% accepted. So that's a problem. That's not the KPI. So you have in that not maybe not in that article, but on the Twitter there is like a post thing about maybe Meta or somebody were doing the leaderboard about the token usage. You were talking about that as well.
Yep.
And coming back to that, to this Uber article, they're saying they breached the budget in April. So they planned the budget for this year, and whatever that budget is, and in the first 4 months, they spent everything they planned for this year. They will do whatever they will do. They will rebalance, or they will whatever they will do. But the point is, they planned something for 12 months, and in the first 4 months they spent everything. That sounds like a bad plan to me. I would
They
agree.
say
Did
60%
they
of the time
so
it works every time.
yeah, just I have one question and I will finish with this. Did they, in those 4 months, did they achieve the plan for year 2026? Did they achieve income? Did they achieve everything they wanted to achieve in those 4 months, or they just spent the budget? Because if they
did.
achieved everything they want in 2026, that's awesome. Increase the budget, triple it, quadruple it, or whatever. But somehow I'm in doubt.
They went with the Jonathan plan. Everything's working. Let's just go ahead and break it.
Yeah, so we can have more work.
So yeah, everything's working. We just need to break it.
I mean, it's crazy. Oh, go ahead.
I was like, that's exactly the kind of what is it? It's just like an overreaction that we're seeing right now, right? The tool shows some promise, and then it gets adopted. People are getting results anecdotally that feel very impressive. And it feels more impressive than it is because it's designed, an LLM specifically, is designed to just tell you what you want to see, tell you what you want to know. I tell my kids all the time that AI is many things. LLMs are the current iteration of it. And there's still lots more in the machine learning ocean for people to token max on eventually. We'll come to a point where LLMs will calm down probably when they get packed into something that doesn't cost thousands of dollars to run. People are buying $10,000 video cards and running agents 24/7. And for us here at SLS, it just seems crazy to run processes 24/7 that are indeterminate, right? When you start an agent, you give it a plan, but you have no idea whether or not it'll actually do that plan. Like, it is not like regular programming where you create a loop, you create a function, you create a sub-function, and you can test around it. With guiding an LLM agent, there really is no deterministic path. You're just giving it to the probabilities and trying to rein it in. And with that, let's do one last article. We got time for one more, you think?
Real quick, I wanted to comment on
Oh yeah,
some of the math there, because if their budget for Uber, and obviously we have no insider information, there's no real way for us to have an accurate forecasting of this. It's based on the article itself and what they said. But if their R&D budget's 3.4 billion, let's just assume it's $1 billion spent with, and I'm sure it's more than this in terms of that $3.4 billion budget of R&D for them. If 70% of the code being committed is AI generated, but as Amir said, they're only keeping 10% of that for production, and you kind of extrapolate out the math there. And then we also know we had that other thing, which we may not have time for today, the breakdown of how the token is actually being spent and how much is actually ultimately staying in the output versus sort of constructing the eventual output. So a lot of error, a lot of debugging, a lot of hallucination. You work through that whole process, and a lot of the token spin that you have is just chewing through trying to get the AI to actually do the thing that you wanted to do in the first place. So imagine you spent $1 billion and you got $100 million of value. I mean, are we? And then also I was reading off of Reddit while you're going through it, Amir.
And you are bragging about it, So what is there to brag about?
900 million dollars of waste. Because also the thing that's different about humans, and this is something that we haven't really talked about yet, but when you spend time training a human or a human working on a system, they have the ability to capture that information, and it's an investment long term, right? So every dollar that you spend working with people to then improve their skill set, it carries with them. But every single output that's coming from the AI, it's kind of like a one and done situation, right? There's no real carryover into other tasks or other every single session is isolated, and a lot of it doesn't get carried over. A lot of the things that we think are going to improve it through updating markdown files end up not actually. It ends up causing confusion. You have to tweak it over and over again. All those cycles get wasted in the process of trying to tweak it and so on. And then once you take it into a somewhat different territory, it kind of falls flat. And then and this is a second thing to this, every interaction that you have when you're building out, and let's say an agentic system, you have to have all these AI judges and all these evaluations. And these are just single purpose agents that are looking at what the initial LLM is coming back with and evaluating whether or not it's meeting the mark. And as you build out an enterprise system that leverages these things, you very quickly get into territory where one single request actually ends up causing 10 plus separate requests to then evaluate. Because I'll give you an example. If I wanted to make sure that, I don't know, it'll probably hallucinate the math side, but let's say one evaluation is related to math and one evaluation is related to PII data, right? Personal identifiable information, right? I want to make sure that this LLM response does not contain any customer information. Well, I don't want to mix that into the evaluation with the math. So I have two separate evaluations. But also we saw this other thing come up where it hallucinated and somehow it got through. So we need to add another evaluation and then another one, another one, another one, another one. So eventually you have, for every single request that comes through, you have 10 plus kicking off in the background, and all of them are having to share the entire context of the conversation and so on. And it just keeps rolling and rolling, right? But yeah, what scenario do you have where you have something like a $600 to $900 million of waste, $100 million of potential value? Because we've also seen during the code review process, a lot of the time the executive and probably this Uber CTO, 100%, I won't say 100%, but I'm sure someone out there, anonymous Uber engineer, would say as much. The problem right now at enterprise, the problem across the industry, is that the reviews are too slow. So your KPI is how fast you can now review it. And so now we're seeing issues where senior engineers that should know better and that would normally know better, all the incentive structures around it and all of the pressure from leadership is saying, you need to do these reviews faster. And so what ends up happening? What are you creating in that situation? You're creating this sort of auto check, right? Just stamp it, just stamp it, just stamp it. And then it's someone else's fault later on, right? Because ultimately that engineer didn't write the code, it's AI generated, and then they're being pressured to just mark it off, right? And so now, we are seeing, well, what we need to go after is automating the review process with another AI, and that AI will check the AI generated code. And then somehow on the other end of it, we won't have any issue at all. And hopefully we didn't kill everybody off inside of the company that actually knows what's going on. Because again, everything that we're leveraging day to day was not AI generated. It was built by real human engineers. And, so hopefully you don't completely move them out of the company before the things start falling apart, because the existing systems are going to be pretty complicated to mess with. Yeah.
I mean,
So you just given the broader definition of hope-driven development. That's exactly what it is. We write the code with AI, and then we are going to review the code with the AI, and we hope that everything will be fine. What can possibly go wrong? That's a rhetorical question.
Go wrong? Actually, nothing will go wrong, and then we'll break it all on purpose because it's 2026. All right, we're coming up at an hour, actually. So we could do one more story, I think. And I wanted to kick this one directly to Ryan because this is the one that he brought up. I believe it's this one. A single meta engineer burned 500K for this Claudenomics leaderboard. And then there were layoff risks. So let's go ahead and tie it back, because we've talked about how these metrics don't make sense, and we've talked about people overreacting. But Ryan, when you came across this kind of a post, were you more just surprised or disgusted with this kind of waste? What was really going through your mind when you see these numbers?
Yeah, I mean, the first one is, obviously take everything with a grain of salt in terms of the raw number side of it. But these are numbers that are coming out of the industry where you're just sitting there going, how did you possibly do this? But it goes back to incentive structure. So if you create an environment where just like the lines of code is the metric that we're following, naturally what middle management thinks, because, these guys have MBAs, they went to the Harvard Business School, clearly they know what they're doing. So you create a dashboard, you put all the lines of code in there, you rank the entire team based on how many lines of code that they're generating and that they're writing. And then, is it, hey, this should have been a function that then creates this big blob of text or numbers, but instead of doing that, they just hard code it into their commit. That's also a line of code, right? I mean, and then do a break lines, because hey, we don't want one single long running line of string. We want to have multiple lines counted. So I just put break lines in there. And then, are any of these people actually looking to see whether or not that it's a text that was break line, break line, break line into these commits? No, of course not. So I think the idea of taking something like, at least in the lines of code, there wasn't a direct financial impact in any way, right? And not to a degree that was significant, right? So it was kind of similar analogy, but the lines of code number, I mean, maybe it'll slow down the performance by depends on how many lines of code, obviously, but when it gets to the token side and we start saying, okay, we're gonna measure everybody on based on their spend, it kind of brings us into this weird territory, which is, why don't we do this with cloud? Like, I could have spun up 100 EC2s to, and I'm going to max them out, and I'm going to put all of what would be serverless architecture. I'm going to use microservices, but in massive EC2s, and stitch them together and run that bill through the roof, and then I'm going to tag Ryan Jones to every single one of these, so that in the leaderboard showing how much cloud spend is happening, I'm the number one. Cloud maxing, right? And it just sounds so ridiculous in any other context. And I think also this is one of those, like when you see a moment happen, you're like, yeah, if this is actually what I think it is, this is going to show up in a documentary. I think this is definitely one of those moments where, and we saw, as I said there in the tweet, they eventually took this down because it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. I think once, because people are also human. By human nature, we don't want to lose our job, right? So we're trying to adhere to whatever the culture and the company is setting the standard for. And so then, and I wonder, I hope that there's some leak that happens in the future, or some Congress session where they're looking at things, and somehow there's a document that shows up where the executive that made that decision was actually just asking Claude or some GPT. And GPT came back and was like, "Oh, go ahead."
Sam Altman always said, I remember when ChatGPT launched, it was like 2023, 2022, right? And Sam Altman said, when we get ChatGPT working the way it's supposed to, it will tell us how we'll make money. That was the actual statement, like 3 years ago. And that really hasn't come to fruition, because we know that it takes a lot more than a chatbot to make money.
Do you want me to compile the statements from the NFT? Like, the ape from my avatar will cost, like, I don't know, 7 figures in like 1 year or 2 years. Already costs thousands for reason unknown to me. But also Sam Altman saying those kind of things. I mean, he's selling his product, but in my opinion, he's a little bit overreacting or exaggerating. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You tell me.
He's fallen into AI psychosis. When you when you really believe that this thing is such a powerful transformational object, you forget reality and you only believe what's in and around you. And for this one post to talk about Meta and the Claudenomics and these leaderboards, but then to have Meta turn around and just lay off 8,000 people. My hot take is that tech companies are now just like AI washing the jobs. They got run up through the pandemic. People were stuck at home, and we got pandemic checks, and we could only spend it at Amazon or on online stores. You couldn't find a Switch anymore. People were buying video games. Software companies were leveraging up because money was still cheap. And now I'm pretty sure that the tech companies are realizing they're cashing in on those gains from all that extra spend and all that extra hiring that they did, and just saying, well, we don't have to pay payroll anymore. That's a cash expense. We can cut that. And then turn around and say, well, we're going to build more AI data centers because that's a long-term capital expenditure. We can issue debt instruments for that. That doesn't really affect our balance sheets. And also, we can partner with governments to subsidize the building and creation of data centers, because these things take years to build. It's not like Google's going to spend $2 billion on a data center and it's going to get built in 6 months. No, these buildings are humongous. They don't have any people in them. They're just full of water cooling structures that just burn up all the water. But mostly it's a balance sheet thing, right? Because they can get other people to pay for part of the cost. I'm like, oh, it's bringing jobs. It's bringing like 4 jobs, like 2 guys to like flip on the lights once or twice, and then like a 3rd and 4th person to make sure that the light stays green and is not red. It's not network administrators. It's not people having to like run a bunch of cables or anything like that. It's just the compute hardware just running.
Isn't that the pyramid, or what is called the officially that schema?
A pyramid scheme?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of the thing? Because I see hundreds of billions of contracts, like between AWS and OpenAI, and then NVIDIA with God knows whom, and everyone, like, they are throwing hundreds of billions of dollars, or whichever currency they use in their deals. But where that money is supposed to come from, that's the first thing. And if they find that money, they need to earn that money. That's the economy. At least that is the part of economy I understand. So they will invest that money. They need to earn that money, and then they need to profit. So who is going to pay for that? Where is that money?
Almir, this is radical thinking you are talking about. You're talking about defining a business model. And AI hasn't figured that out yet. AI cannot define a business model for itself.
Yeah, and I'm just hearing this. I'm like, so you're saying that taking all the clean drinking water from the people in small towns and then increasing their electrical bill, you're saying this is a negative?
Yeah, they just don't see it.
I'm like, what?
Yeah,
that's a negative. That it has to be clean drinking water that they're using, and fresh, clean water.
All these data centers will happen as soon as they figure out how to produce chips outside of Taiwan. Because there is a single place on Earth that is that is producing the most advanced chips, and everyone else are designing them. So if it's that easy to build the data centers, and I'm asking this as a concerned citizen, like. If you can't build the factory of these chips to produce them in the United States, or in somewhere in Europe, or anywhere else in the world, so how do you plan to build all these advanced data centers, and where do you think you're going to get all the hardware stuff that you need, and what is can I sell you my old RAM chips if you need them?
They're just full of
how much will we pay for
Mac
them?
Minis.
I got spares one.
Every data center is just 2 million Mac Minis stacked on top of one another. That's really all they got to do. I don't know why we're even talking about it. Obviously, it's a solved problem.
Yeah. I was gonna say the company that's like you said, they're using the machines, but who actually makes these machines? And it's the Dutch company ASML, and they do EUV, and there's really good videos on YouTube about how these machines work. But right now they take, yeah, on average of 6 to 12 months to build. They're extremely complex. There's like, if you just watch that video, it's like they said, it's like shining a laser from the surface of the moon and hitting a quarter on the Earth. So it's not easy. It takes a lot of stuff. They have to get, even the mirrors inside of these machines are made from a specific company, and they make the smoothest mirrors possible because there's no other way to build it out that we know about so far. And they've been working on this for decades, and that's the fastest that they can go. And then when it comes to the, obviously right now we're seeing that citizens around the country, at least in the United States, are going, hey, you know what? We don't want this data center here because you're taking our clean drinking water and you're raising our electricity costs and you're not creating jobs. And then not only that, the local municipalities are giving subsidies to these companies to do it because, I don't know. I don't want to be the guy saying that there's kickbacks there, but if it smells, as Warren Buffett said, if there's one cockroach, there's many, right? So if it doesn't really make sense of why you would do that to your own people, there's probably something else going on there, right? And so, these take anywhere from 12 to 36 plus months to build, and constantly the architecture is changing because people are rebelling against the idea of their clean drinking water being stolen in that way, right? So they've got to come up with self-cooling systems, and they have plans for this. Microsoft has some, but they said they won't actually come into production until late 2027, right? And so they're already running a lot of these data centers, even the one that XAI recently built one out, and they gave out 300 megawatts, maybe. Might be much more than that. I might be getting that wrong.
Probably much more than that.
Much more than that. 300. I want to say it definitely wasn't gigawatts. I think it was only, let me just see, XAI. It was too Anthropic.
I know that Microsoft and Google have both wanted to purchase
300
nuclear power plants to like get them running again.
Yeah, so we went from hope-driven development to trust me, bro, infrastructure.
No,
trust me, bro, infra. Yes, that is perfect. Trust me, bro, infra.
Trust me, bro, infrastructure. Yeah, so just to say this, so it is 300 megawatts. There's 220,000 GPU commitment, and so they're talking about the scale of gigawatts coming online.
Yeah.
But there's a guy I'm following now called Ed Zitron. And he has a really good blog. It's called like Where's Your Ed, and which is a nice little play on words. But also he's really good on X as well. If you look up Ed Zitron, and he does these deep dives into this. And so, for instance, in that situation, how is XAI actually powering this? It's through like gas turbines. They're emitting tons of stuff, and like we went from clean energy, save the planet, global warming to, oh man, there's a few more dollars to pick up. Switch back to coal, switch back to gas, emit as much as possible, steal drinking water. And then not only this, so that's another piece of it. But the other side of this equation too is how long, like the cycle times for NVIDIA when they're coming out with these new GPUs, and some of the architecture in which you actually build them out inside a data center apparently requires different setups. So imagine that you invest all this money to actually build this out, and you're doing it for, in the GPU new cycle time, according to the Zitron, was about 2 years. Every 2 years, they're coming out with something new from NVIDIA. But then the time to actually build the data centers is, 18 to 36 months. So we get into this weird situation where you probably have a ton of GPUs just sitting on the shelf somewhere. They're not actually in a data center at all. They have a problem just with the raw physics of actually powering them. People are rebelling against it. So you're having to change the architecture up. And then the spend of this stuff we're talking about trillions of dollars, right? So, and then we're seeing the results that we talked through this whole podcast of things hit or miss are actually costing more than the human employees to generate. So I don't know. So I if someone's listening and you've figured out how all these numbers line up together and why we're still on the positive, that we're on the plus side of all that, let us know.
They figured it out.
Yeah,
drop
exactly.
a comment below if you
could,
come
on the pod, come on to it next.
We'll have you on. We would love to have someone with an answer on. I think that would be amazing. They could tell us exactly how it works 60% of the time every time.
Yeah, and the one of the again back to Sam Altman saying that ChatGPT is going to tell them how they will make money, and ChatGPT will tell me how I'm going to make money, and it's going to tell all of you how you're going to make the money. So I don't know. Have you seen the movie from 20, 2003, 4? I don't know. Jim Carrey. It was like. Bruce Almighty, I think,
Yeah, I
something like
remember
that.
that
And
movie where
there
he
was
has
like
God
a
power.
lottery, and he became God at some point because God went to vacation. Okay, he became the Chat GPT, and he gave everyone who had the ticket. He awarded them, and all the tickets were winning tickets, and people were celebrating. But when they went to pick up their money, it was like a few cents. So they were all winning. I don't think that's how economy works, but it's a kind of good example. Actually, that is how economy works. So if ChatGPT is going to give everyone and tell everyone how to earn money, if we split fairly to everyone, I'm kind of worried that I'm not going to earn anything from that
I
advice.
try
At least
to
that advice.
I try to hold an internally solar punk view of the world, right? And I hold that up against the trust me infrastructure bros with, if you can imagine a magical computer box, a magical machine that can solve all your engineering problems, but you can't use that same magical box to just make sure everybody has enough food and water, then what are we really doing? Like, it's not a real box. And every super AI enthusiast that I run into, that's what I'd ask them. I was like, well, what can you imagine AI can do? Oh, I can do all these things. I don't have to work anymore. It's writing all my code. It's building these things. I'm like, cool. How do we make sure that everybody has like food and shelter? Can it solve that? And then they get all defensive, like, oh no, that's not a real problem we can solve. I'm like, I think we need more imagination.
I would just want to throw my hand up and say, I feel like there should be this type of conversation happening just around the because you don't get those dollars back that they wasted. So those were hundreds of billions of dollars that have probably been wasted at this point, and you're just burning, like using the compute to try to run something, and then it comes back and it's like it kind of worked, kind of doesn't. Run it back, run it back. Every single time that you do that, it's gone, right? And so that money's just gone. And so I was trying to think through this, just like, what if they didn't do this at all, and they just would have taken that money and actually tried to use it for real things that would have actually benefited society. And it's like, at some point you do have to look at the numbers of it and just be like, man,
I'm
you
sorry, Ryan,
guys,
but that's not how world works.
it's like,
You can't do that.
yeah, it's impossible. Sorry.
Don't ask
Uh,
why, but you can't.
yeah, yeah. And the
Trust
latest
me.
thing, which is, yeah. And one of the latest things that I saw is that there was a conference that just recently happened, and Sam Altman was talking about um, intelligence being a utility. And I think this goes back maybe 6 to 8 months ago, when I believe it was their CFO or COO had mentioned the idea of potentially the government getting involved in backing some of these loans that they were doing to do this data center build out. And why that's so dangerous is because if we see that cliff and we see the train running off the cliff, and now they're framing it in this way. I even saw BlackRock, the CEO of BlackRock, saying something similar to this. And so it almost makes me feel like they're setting up to have like a big bailout happen, and then use the citizens' dollars to then do it, or worse, and citizens' dollars not being us but our next generation, because that's how all this stuff works. They'll print a bunch of money to then pay off these loans, keep all these companies from, obviously they'll pick and choose their favorites from going bust, just like what happened in 2008. And then as a result of it, there'll be the buying power of the US dollar, let's say in this case, at least for the US side, will be diminished in the background, and then obviously the next generation has to sort of pay that toll. And it's just kind of like, for what? What are you guys doing? So taking this angle of the utility side and then trying to do the bailout side. What I would say is, I think this would have worked better before 2008, and I feel good. Yeah, I feel good that someone like an Eric Schmidt is going on to a stage talking to people that were hopeful about the future and saw how COVID was messed up and how 2008 happened and how the banks basically bankrupted the country, and bailed all of their loans out. No one went to jail. Nothing happened off the back of it. And then now we're setting up to almost do it again. And it's like, so fingers crossed that, we learn.
There is definitely a larger non-tech question of unchecked growth and the pursuit of unchecked growth, and the mental gymnastics large companies have to do in order to justify their balance sheet, in order to justify what they're going to continue to do with investor money and how they're going to pay back investors. Investors being like the 6 people that have it all. But that's for a whole other discussion. And I wanted to tell you guys that this was a really good time. I think we covered a bunch of good stories. We've talked about how the incentive structures don't make any sense. We're in an overheated economy. It's being fueled by AI. We don't know exactly how it's going to shake out, but we know that if we stick to our fundamentals and we stick to like a reasonable business plan, you do some work, you make some money, you use your tools, you pay your people. I mean, that seems like something the chatbot could come out with. But for today, we've got to close it up here. I think we could continue chatting about this stuff for a lot longer. And in that spirit, every couple of weeks, check us out. We're gonna keep bringing more of these. As long as these crazy news articles are coming out, I think we can continue kind of airing our grievances on this AI Psychosis podcast, because this is healthy for us. Like, we have nowhere else to kind of vent, not just vent, but talk these things through, because they are affecting our lives. They are affecting our clients' lives. And hopefully just by sharing this space with each other and everyone out there watching, we can make it a little bit better. So thanks, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.